Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first annual installment of WaPo Story Mode, our stream where we talk about the news of the week every week, except the weeks that we don't. Today, well, wait, first of all, I am Rusty, but also I am Washington Post video game reporter Nathan Grayson, and I am joined by an all star cast of people I work with, including, but not limited to, but also limited to, fellow Washington Post video game reporter Shannon Liao, and also our editor, Mikhail. Wait, I've never tried to pronounce your last name.
Klimentov.
Klimentov. There we go.
Is that right?
Cool.
Did I butcher
Is that
it?
right?
I mean, I feel like it's usually Klimentov, but it doesn't
Oh,
make a like emphasis on the first syllable. But like, come on. I've heard it so many different ways over the years that it functionally doesn't matter.
We should add an extra syllable every stream to kind of signify our progress.
Yes, that's right.
And yeah, so today we are going to be discussing our predictions for this year in video games. And also, that's my cat just kind of running around in the background. But yeah, our predictions for the year in games. Given that, it's a new year, there's plenty of room for possibility. But first, something that I wanted to show off very quickly while people are populating the chat is Mikhail, can you show us your kind of your current setup right now?
Yes, I'm gonna do my very best to not disrupt this and make sure that it all remains in place when I'm done. But okay, let's turn the camera around. So on this little table in front of me, as a makeshift tripod, I have the Puzz 3D Star Wars Star Destroyer box, the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone Mystery at Hogwarts game, which is great. Good game. I haven't played it in years, but I remember it being good. Clue, and then an assortment of books: History of Russia, Who Rules the World, Trouble in Paradise, October, and then a bunch of tax books. And all of that is still slightly below eye level for me, but let me try and get the phone back in the right place where it was before so as to not anger our video producer. There we go. But yeah, that's what I'm
Wow.
working with right now. Happy
Yeah,
holidays, everyone.
wow.
I
Yeah,
know,
that's a lot
right?
of books. I've
I
never heard of half of those books.
I don't think they're like, I think some of these authors might be famous. I think the books themselves are all over the map.
I frankly am very jealous and actually would be willing to do a trade with you because the way I see it, right, is that like I have like a boom arm for my mic and like a
Mm.
little setup for my camera and stuff. And those things can only hold up a camera and a microphone. They cannot be books.
Mm.
Books can be books and also hold up a camera or a microphone. So I feel like your setup is objectively better.
That is true. And it's kind of a modular setup where I can really switch things around. I can build like a pseudo Stonehenge on this table out of these books. There's really a lot I could do if this were kind of like desert island situation. So would definitely have this over just a simple arm if I were deposited on a desert island and asked to stream from there.
And asked to
Hmm.
stream from there and being given the chance to bring like 12 or 14 different items with you. Yeah.
Yeah, just cheating really badly on like you can bring a tripod with you to the desert island and being like, well, okay, what if my tripod is 7 books and 3 board games?
You
Yeah.
somehow have internet on this island, but you're not calling for help, and you're just stranded.
I'm really dedicated to the launcher brand, to WaPo Stomo. Um, the call for help can wait. I think I'll last an hour or so on a desert island. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
And
Oh, sorry.
today I can only be here for 1 hour, so that also
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
fits in.
just long enough. Then Mikhail will call for help, and we have to end the stream because he'll be rescued by the United States government.
So true.
Yeah. Anyway, today, as I said earlier, we are going to be making predictions for the year ahead in video games. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that perhaps I will just get us started off with one of my many, many, many predictions. Um, kind of I think an easy one, which is that I don't believe that Breath of the Wild 2, which was our thumbnail, is going to come out this year. I think it will get shown again. It'll look really neat. But yeah, I'm guessing that one gets delayed.
Interesting. Shannon, I'm curious what you think about this, but my counter prediction is that not only does it come out this year, but it is I wouldn't say like surprise released, but like Nintendo gives us a 2-week window and then they're like, it's here. So a dramatically different prediction, but we'll see who's more right.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the release date, there probably wouldn't be like an additional delay. So it just depends on what they announce, and then they probably would stick by it. I don't think that Nintendo is usually in the business of like delaying things, even with the pandemic going on. So yeah, but honestly, if it comes out next year, it'd probably be better looking than if it came out this year. That's my only prediction, really.
Interesting. Better looking. How do you mean?
Like graphics wise, more adapted to like the Switch OLED. Like using the battery life of Switch OLED and also the newer Switches, it could probably be like a larger game file size, and then have like I don't know more scenery, a larger world to explore. Than
Hmm.
if it were to come out this year, maybe they have less time to work on all of those parts.
I think based on what modders have done with Breath of the Wild, they should make it a PC exclusive and just like, do it 4K. Just forget that they have a platform called the Switch, which is one of the most successful handhelds of all time. I mean,
I can totally imagine them. We just don't hear anything in 2022. 2023 rolls around. Everyone's like, where's Breath of the Wild 2? Where's Breath of the Wild 2? And then surprise release. Bam. And it is The Last of Us 2 style fidelity, realistic Link, realistic Zelda, realistic Ganon. They've completely overhauled everything. It's hyper realistic. And yeah, it's a PC exclusive. That'd be cool.
Yeah, they just completely overhaul all their switches and like put them in the warehouse
Hmm.
for maybe another time.
but yeah, no, they actually just make the Switch stop working. They just like fully pull the plug on it. They're like, oh yeah, your Switch that you've spent hundreds of dollars on now doesn't work anymore. Legitimately, though, one prediction that I will make about it, in addition to the release date stuff, is that despite all of the neat fan theories of what it's going to be about, um, I don't think it will be about any of those things. Like, there's been this one floating around where people are like, "Oh man, it's going to be about like a young Ganon," and like this is the story of how he came to be that character in like the mythology. And people are basing this off like one of the trailers featuring Link with like kind of a funky looking arm that's partially transformed, that sort of a thing. And that sounds really neat. But Nintendo has like never played ball with any of the fan theories, so I think they're gonna be like, no, it'll be like a fairly standard Zelda story with maybe a bit more of a pre-apocalyptic bent, or
Yeah,
vice
I'm ready
versa.
to
I don't
I'm
know.
ready to make the prediction right here. It's going to be a story about a hero going on a journey, I think.
Yeah,
I
a
think so.
hero on a journey.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
don't
think
Hmm.
know.
so.
That sounds risky.
What
I think
about
that's going to be it.
a villain standing in one place and not moving?
I think you can put that on the board. There's some good luck that we're probably going to see that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I personally would love to play that game. It's like Nintendo's just complete deconstruction of what it means to be an action adventure game. Like, how little do you really need?
Yeah.
It'll be like Hades. You don't really go anywhere.
I mean,
That's so true. I mean, I haven't beaten that game, so I don't know.
you don't go
Oh.
anywhere if you like barely play it. Yeah. If you're Mikhail, then yeah, you don't go
I
anywhere.
feel like I got some good runs in, and then I was like, yeah, all right, I pretty much got what I wanted out of this game. Played like 3 hours of it. Yeah, okay.
Well, like ultimately, well, not to spoil anything, you still end up in the same place. But I digress.
Wow. Man, that is kind of a big spoiler. But anyway, speaking of, well, now you're taking a drink. But Shannon, what is your first prediction of the day?
Oh, okay. Well, so let's see. There's a lot of things happening this year. I think just now, even on Twitter, people were saying maybe E3 would be virtual this year. I think with Omicron, we don't know how many events will be in person. So I'm really thinking more about how much will I get to go to California this year? Probably not that many times. So I guess, yeah, just in general, thinking about the impact of the pandemic on everyone and how more games are getting delayed and games are maybe coming out slower as a result. So I that's like not a specific prediction, just like a
Mm.
general thought about the world and the state of things and the depressing state of things overall.
Oh yeah, wait. Okay, question for the room then. When do you guys think we get our next scary new COVID variant? When's the one that like takes Omicron's place and forces us even deeper into our own homes?
Wasn't there already? Isn't there already one?
It got run over though. I guess it was
Okay.
declared like not a risk because it was just like it failed to take off. And I was like,
There
oh
were.
man, big same.
Yeah, there were. I might be conflating. This might just be one, but I remember. Yeah, there was the flop variant. But I thought there was another one in the works
In the
where
works.
they were like, oh, this one has like 37 times as many mutations as Omicron. So um, I don't know. I feel like the here's I would the next time somebody announces that you're going back to the office, that is when the next variant will appear.
Mm, okay.
You can set a
Yeah, that's
watch
very
to it.
true.
It is, yeah. As soon as you get the email of like, all right, we're going back to the office in 2 weeks, that's when the new variant shows up.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think the last time it was like January 18th, January 24th. So good luck to us. But yeah, um, that is one thing. I just think that things are going a certain way. Either everyone gets COVID or nobody has COVID anymore, and that's how the pandemic ends. And I feel like that still like reverberates over to the games industry, even when we're talking about like what games we're expecting and we're looking forward to. I end up thinking about like the overall state of the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely feel that. That's why like I'm predicting a delay for Breath of the Wild, even when, Nintendo's not prone to delays. And that's why I'm feeling similarly about like Starfield, me and especially because Bethesda's very prone to delays. And then like Final Fantasy 17, which has already been delayed, but I mean, we barely seen any of it. Like there are all these games that theoretically have release dates this year that we have seen, I think, far less of than we would have in previous years. And that makes me pretty wary. Like, okay, are they really on the way if you're not even like revving up the promotional engine? Like, yeah, you've got to be either down to the wire in terms of, getting a game ready for release, or just like, yeah, we're going to say it's coming out at this point because shareholders like to hear that. And then we're going to be like, whoops. I mean, but we definitely didn't know the entire time that we were going to delay it. That would be crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and then, speaking of delays, I mean, I was just being asked, when do I think I'll get my hands on a Steam Deck? The Steam Deck was supposed to come, to our hands maybe end of last year. I think it was delayed, like, multiple times already, and then the last date I got was this month. I just reached out again, and, yeah, we'll see when they actually hand those units to us, but, I mean, they have a lot of supply chain issues is what they're saying, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more supply chain fun this year. Like, I mean, do either of you think that we will reach a point this year where it's possible or easy, remotely easy, to find PS5s and Xbox Series X's, or is that just a beautiful pipe dream?
I have never had to worry about it, so I have no idea because I just got them through the post. No,
Wow.
I
Wow, that's super cool for you, Mikhail. Everyone in the
let
audience can
me,
like really identify with you, and they're
yeah,
feeling very related to right now.
like all of you in the audience, I have never had to buy a console. My the first console I got was a Wii, which was gifted to me by an uncle, and then I got the Wii U from somewhere else afterwards. And I was simply a child. I was not going out to buy a console. Um, a friend of mine bought me an Xbox One so we could stay in touch because he worked at GameStop as a going away to college gift. Um, and Huh.
And then you got next gen consoles
Yeah, and
from
then I
a
got all the
different
other
uncle
consoles.
named Jeffrey Bezos.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, actually weird. I've never ever bought a console.
Man,
Wow.
so you are
Okay.
definitively not a man of the people. A
Well,
member of the landed gentry.
here's what I'll say. The people, as it were, keep gifting me consoles. So I think I'm kind of whatever is a step beyond man of the people in terms of love and adoration. That's kind of where I feel like I slot in.
Wow. Yeah.
Man admired by the people is probably I think that must be it.
Now we need to put self-proclaimed in front of that.
I don't think so.
The headline would be Mikhail said he's a man admired by the people.
Wow.
I don't think that part's if I were the editor, I think I would cut that part out. I don't really think that's necessary.
Hmm.
Doesn't add anything to the context. It doesn't enlighten. Yeah, I think we can just say man adored by the people.
Well, I'm
Fair
glad
enough, I
we got
guess.
that figured out.
All
But
right.
yeah.
So Shannon, do you think that there are going to be PlayStation 5s anywhere, or is this just going to keep being a sad drought for me personally?
Oh, for you personally. Well, that's too bad. I mean, that seems like a personal problem. But okay. Well, right now, I'm a little bit better off than Mikhail. I did buy some consoles. Not every console was gifted to me. But I did see on like Twitter, just even today, people are looking for like PS5, and they like kept adding it to their cart, and they can't buy it because it's sold out again. I think that even when the PS5 and Xbox Series X were launching, there was not enough supply. And that was like maybe I wrote an article about like, is that on purpose? Like maybe they limited the supply back then so they can increase more demand and make it look really special to have one. But at this point, it's like really there's not enough parts. So that is why like there's just like a supply constraint and they just really can't bring enough units to market. And I also heard predictions from analysts saying like this will be fixed in a few years at the point where the PS6 and Xbox I don't know 11 come out, and at that point, people don't care about the PS5 and Xbox Series X anymore, and so it doesn't really matter. And at that point, you can get as many as you want.
Yeah, a prediction that I wrote down for my list is literally in an effort to divert attention long enough for stores to restock PS5s, Sony will release the PS6.
Hmm. I mean, you joke, but there's just kind of like we've had a series of cascading, unpredicted crises. The first being COVID, and then I remember there was a period. This must have been around the time of the launch of the consoles, when I was in touch with like folks running factories that were supplying console makers, and they seemed kind of generally pleased with the swing of things. They were kind of happier about the supply chain, about kind of their ability to get their hands on the products they needed. And then you had this chip shortage on account of general supply chain issues, but also demand from folks who are getting into crypto. And so you have COVID, you've got like crypto enthusiasm really ballooning over the past 2 years, probably longer than that, but in the pandemic, kind of especially, I think, and around NFTs especially. Um, and there's kind of no way to predict what the next possible crisis could be. Um, but like we've already had these two. It is not too much of a stretch to say that there might be some other thing on the horizon that'll further strain supply chains, where there might not be an easy way out of the crisis we're in. So the PS6 seems totally possible.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like last year Biden was like he would try to invest more in like creating like fabs, which is some kind of like word to mean like the factories that produce these semiconductor chips in the US. And I also talked to analysts saying like it would take many years to make a factory like this in the US. So even if you invest now, you still have to wait many years to get those chips. And then even like when people were buying cars, they're like, I don't really need that many cars anymore. So car makers like pulled back on, and like all of these different parts of the supply chain take so many years to actually change or like have an impact on the actual supply. So if they make changes now, then again it's like 2026 when you finally fix the supply chain issues, if you do fix them at all.
So actually, not to, I think that's a really good point, and not to really forecast that the PS6 is coming, but um like Microsoft probably couldn't, or like obviously could not foresee the situation they'd find themselves in when they designed the Series S. And the Series S has been like a pretty big beneficiary of the situation right now, where nobody can get their hands on a PS5, nobody can get their hands on a Series X. And so the thing that's left over is the Series S, and that's the thing that people have kind of been buying as a result. The Switch has been doing this thing where they are re-releasing the Switch in kind of different iterations that I assume cost Nintendo less, or they're willing to eat the cost because the Switch is such a popular console. And I think maybe not a PS6, but there's certainly the possibility that we get like a PlayStation 5 Lite or something like that in the coming years, which, first of all, people will gobble up and also might lower some of the demand toward PS5s. So, not exactly the PS6 idea, but um,
Yeah,
that's a prediction.
I mean, that's a good point. Also, I mean, there's already two different versions of the PS5, right? There's a PS5 digital and there's a
Mm.
PS5 with the CD player slash DVD player slash just like disc player for games. So yeah, they could totally do that. And I think also the Switch has a Switch Lite, which hasn't sold out either. People were able to buy that, but they just never were satisfied. Or I know people who bought the Switch Lite who were like later going back to buy a Switch again because they're like, this one is too small. Um, so yeah, I think those lesser versions of the console might just be leftovers for people to buy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think what's going to happen is they're just going to like slowly but surely strip off more and more parts of each console until they just give you like, I don't know, a little like piece of plastic with maybe one processor on it. And they're like, here you go. It can run games from 1987. Um, Legitimately, though, I do think that there is a good chance that in light of all these hardware issues, console makers are going to increasingly focus on their digital offerings, on like specifically streaming platforms and things like that. I mean, Microsoft already has Game Pass. Game Pass is already like this tremendous amount of content that you can get with a relatively inexpensive subscription, and it's pretty clear that they're betting on that in a fairly big way as like a major part of just what their platform is. And that in the future, I think probably they see things sort of going in the direction of them just being hardware agnostic, and just like Game Pass is the thing that is more pervasive. It's the Netflix of games or whatever. And so like me and I, obviously Microsoft is still building in that direction. They're not there yet. It's not the thing that has taken over video games. But I mean, I said this last year around this time, but it does feel pretty inevitable just in terms of, the convenience of that and the fact that you're no longer gated by hardware in this way. I think it's just a more appealing offering to a world winged on Netflix. Um, and so I think I think that somewhat ironically, Netflix will not do that. They've kind of shown that their forays into games right now are pretty simple mobile fare, and they're already pretty far behind the curve. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Sony announce something like that this year, to be like, hey, we're doing it too. Better late than never.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also see like cloud gaming was something that people have said for years is going to be huge, and people are already like PlayStation now has already existed for several years, and Xbox and Google are have their services. So does Amazon, which is like a faster way to like launch a game without having to download it and just like streaming it over the internet. So I definitely, as I was thinking about like, I had to re-download Call of Duty Warzone lately, like recently, and I was like, this takes me, I don't know, 5 hours. But I'm like also watching Netflix, and I open that, and it takes me like I don't know 10 seconds to watch a show, and I was like, this will, I think the gap between waiting 5 hours and the 10 seconds is gonna shorten over time, maybe like gradually. It's still happening gradually, but maybe this year it'll be a little bit closer as well.
It's a bit of a shame. If there were ever a perfect trial period, test period for cloud gaming, it would be now, when consoles are hard to find, they're in low supply. There's like a very public crisis over access to the newest consoles. And you would think that would be the opportunity for a lot of these kind of big companies to start pushing their cloud offerings. And I don't know why but it just doesn't seem like they've been particularly adamant about that. I think you could probably put together a pretty successful pitch around, like, hey, we put out this new game. You're not going to be able to play it on the PlayStation 5 because you're not going to be able to get your hands on the PlayStation 5. But in the meantime, subscribe to our $10 a month service and you can play it on your phone, you can play it on your computer, you can do whatever. And you're not going to get some of the kind of like haptic feedback stuff we're doing or the 3D audio stuff we're doing, and that's going to be a bummer, and that's a reason to buy the PS5 down the line. But for now, you can still kind of pay us and get access to the games that you want to play. And it's strange to me that that hasn't happened, and I imagine that has something to do with the technical limitations right now, and the companies not being fully sure that the technology is there. um, but it's a bit of a missed opportunity. The timing could not be more off.
I mean, I think this is kind of the pitch around Game Pass at this point, especially with them like launching a TV app and a controller that you can pair with a TV and stuff like that. I think they are trying to say basically this. I think the bigger issue though is that they also want to sell consoles,
Yeah.
and as soon as they start saying that, they've kind of opened Pandora's Xbox, so to speak.
Come
Uh,
on.
Yeah, no, I think when I was like trying to do all this like PS5, Xbox Series X coverage at the same time, and I was like, okay, so which one's gonna sell more? And obviously it's the PS5, without a doubt, like hands down. And even Xbox was like, they know they're going to lose this console war, whatever you want to call it. But then they were like, we bet on the Game Pass, and that's why we're selling a subscription service so hard, and knowing that it's gonna come at like a a discount for each player. And I think you also know that like each console maker is selling their consoles at a loss, and they're trying to make the money back through selling games, which then they can turn a profit on. So it is like that's Xbox business strategy. It probably wouldn't work for Sony in that way because Sony already has like all of the cloud around the PS5, and everyone will naturally want to buy one, rather than you have to like persuade them so hard.
mhm.
It is really interesting to me that the kind of, I can draw this analogy in my mind of like Sony to Xbox and like HBO to Netflix, but the valences there are sort of reversed, where Netflix is streaming service, offers like super broad range of offerings. You can watch anything from like the trashiest stuff to Oscar contenders on there that they are funding, that they're producing. And then HBO is the more prestige fare. And you can see kind of a similar dynamic between PlayStation and Xbox, where Xbox, with Game Pass, with its strategy right now, is positioning itself as the kind of every person's console, every person's brand. And Sony is the prestige brand with the Game of the Year winners, the narrative heavy hitters. But the valence is kind of the opposite, where HBO is more niche, Netflix reaches everyone. And right now it's kind of the opposite with Xbox, where Xbox is definitely on the back foot and PlayStation is the marquee console brand. But I do wonder if that is going to kind of change over time because of Game Pass, because Game Pass simply has more on offer. And I think you're going to start to see game developers trying to get their games onto Game Pass more proactively, get it there immediately. I've not seen or heard anything from developers, even like whispers about, oh, we're not happy with the cut we're getting from Game Pass, or Microsoft's terms aren't good, which makes me think it's like a pretty solid service on all ends. Um, and so I do wonder if we're going to kind of see a shifting of that balance of the dynamic you described earlier of like PlayStation is the top dog and Microsoft is playing catch up right now, but that's kind of why it's getting into Game Pass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the other thing there is that Microsoft is preparing in another way too. They're not just relying on third parties; they're also buying up companies. Like
Mm.
they're clearly looking at this as like, well, we're going to need content. We're going to need to start banking content in the ways that services like Netflix do, and so we're going to need many more internal studios. And so they've bought a bunch of them. They have Double Fine and Obsidian and like a bunch of other studios that are a little bit like smaller in terms of name and clout and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I that is another prediction for me this year is I would not be shocked to see just more industry consolidation in general. It's a really hard thing to be a mid-tier developer, and so a lot of them are saying, well, we're either going to have to make some hard decisions, make some cuts, or we get bought by a bigger company and we stay afloat and get to hire more. And then also companies like Microsoft and Sony, I think, are going to be like, well, if we are doing these services, if we're making these things, then we need content. And the best way to do that is to have our own studios churning it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna say is that, as long as Sony has, like, the better exclusives, God of War 2, Horizon Forbidden Dawn is also coming next month, and just from that front, if they have better exclusives than Xbox, doesn't, like, when Xbox launched, they didn't really have that many games, when the Series X launched, and Halo Infinite was delayed till last year. But because they, like, also acquired Bethesda and, like, this year we're gonna have games like Redfall, for instance, that could change as well. But yeah, I mean, even those exclusives, you see them launching on PC and Series X at the same time, and they're not exclusive to the Xbox, which, like, just further reinforces the idea that they are not just selling consoles, they actually care about this broader Game Pass strategy. But yeah, I also think that in addition to consolidation, we're gonna see more of like other industries, like the movies industry, also like buying up shares in gaming companies and vice versa. Like just yesterday, we saw like Nexon, the Korean gaming company, bought part of this film production company that worked on Avengers Endgame. So
Hmm. All right. So, brief aside, chat wants to know what is inside of Pandora's Xbox. I think that we have to answer this question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I want to know what y'all think. I only invented it. I have no idea what's inside of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, well, probably despair.
Wow. Dang.
That's
Now we know which
that's
side
a
of the console war you're on.
that's an insanely good point. Pandora's Xbox. What are some
Oh,
of the monsters from what's his face? Psychonauts 2? I
oh.
feel like
Oh, yeah, like the mind oh, man, there's, like, sensors, there's, like okay, it's been a couple months since I played this game, oh, enablers, there's, like just, like, toxic mental processes in your head that you wanna
mm,
stop. Yeah,
Eh,
those could be
isn't there like a teeth level? Maybe it's just a box full of teeth.
there's a teeth level, but, like, I wouldn't say there's a teeth monster, those are just,
Mm.
like, teeth in the setting, there's, like, an LSD level, LSD is not a monster, like, mouth
mm.
level, nose, Chinatown.
What's
Wow. One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. What's the there's the phobia of the like array of small holes,
Oh no, I
trypophobia
could
or something
never
like
play
that?
that as a level. I have that phobia real bad.
So you just Pandora's Xbox is like the top of the Xbox Series X with all the little holes, but they're kind of
Oh,
unevenly spaced all over the box.
ugh, gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Speaking of things that for the purposes of speaking as somebody who's a reporter, have no opinion about, but you can probably guess. Another prediction of mine is that, not unfortunately, who knows what I think. Bobby Kotick probably isn't going anywhere because incredibly wealthy and powerful people have a way of staying where they are.
Oh, wait, is
I
that your prediction or is that your
Yeah, that
question?
is my prediction surrounding that part of that situation. I think there are other silver linings that will come out of it, but I given how much scrutiny he was under at the end of last year, and the fact that that didn't really, move him. I'm thinking now that he probably won't leave.
Okay, well, earnings for Activision Blizzard is next month, beginning of
Mhm.
next month. Also, by the way, to be clear, I am not saying I'm like pro Xbox or pro Sony. I want to like set the record straight. I never said that. I just
I
said
know.
in a Pandora's box you would find despair. Okay.
Uh,
Anyway, going back to your question or your prediction. Yeah, Bobby Kotick, he survived people calling for his resignation, like 1,800 employees called for his resignation, shareholders called, but shareholders are having their annual meeting in June, so things could change around then as well because, as people are voting on their issues, they can also vote for the board of shareholders to step down. And then they can also just, kind of air out these problems they've been having with the company. So we haven't seen anything for a couple weeks, which seems to say that nothing will happen, but there are a couple of their other like meetings and calls that you can expect to hear some news from at least.
mhm.
I would say there's very little chance of him resigning. I think the playbook kind of developed over the past maybe 5 years and kind of spearheaded in politics is just sort of like sit it out, like wait out the controversy, figure out a way to get through it, surround yourself with people who will have your back, which I think Kotick kind of has in his board.
Mhm.
Um, I think if he ever does leave Activision, the prediction that I'm putting down now is that it will not be in the form of a resignation. It will be that he found he's retiring or he found a wonderful opportunity at a company or brand or franchise owned by some friend of his. I can imagine Bobby Kotick leaving and going to uh, I don't know if like the Patriots, the NFL team, has a board or something like that, but butting up with Robert Kraft somewhere or with some other business person with whom he has a relationship and taking on a like emeritus style title at some other job that lets him kind of depart easily. So I don't think we'll ever see a resignation. I think retirement, in so many words, or leaving for a better opportunity that lets him kind of live out the rest of his working days in peace, that'll be the move.
Yeah, like a 2022 prediction, Bobby Kotick goes to work for Disney. He's the new Bobby CEO. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I mean, maybe because he's already on the board of directors for Coca-Cola, right? And
Mhm.
Coca-Cola did not respond to comment on
Yeah.
all the things going on with him there. So he does have a lot of friends on Wall Street, and it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that if for some reason he is made to leave Activision, he also stands to make a lot of money just off that. He has a contract stipulation that gives him, I think, what, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Or wait, no, millions? Yeah, I think millions just for leaving. So I think that, the easiest prediction of the entire year, like super easy, Bobby Kotick will be okay. He's
Oh
going to be
yeah, yeah,
fine.
yeah. I think that is like Breath of the Wild 2 will have a hero on a journey style prediction. Yeah, I think
Oh man,
same
maybe Breath of
here.
the Wild 2 will be about a villain standing in one place, and it will be specifically about Bobby Kotick staying at Activision.
Oh, whoa.
Wow. Bob of the Wild.
Wow. That's
Oh god, I
good.
hate it.
Yeah.
um, let's see. James Jackson in chat says, I don't think he'll leave or be forced out unless Activision Blizzard suffers some real actual consequences for his behavior, for its behavior. He's more likely to be ousted if Call of Duty sales slip. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue. Right now, given like what's happening at Raven and everything, people are at least complaining about Call of Duty. Warzone has had a lot of glitches and issues recently. So like, there are things happening in that direction, but I doubt it's having an impact on sales directly necessarily. For one, because Warzone's a downloadable game, so that's already a different ballpark. But yeah, I mean, like, these things do ultimately have impacts because if you are either mistreating the people making video games or like you've got a revolving door of them, or a ton of them are leaving and you're having trouble replacing them, then like that ultimately hurts the games in question. It's just a question of like, do they does that have enough of an impact to actually hurt the bottom line, or is it ultimately just, you know, a small amount of money, a small amount of monetary damage, a rounding error, whatever.
Yeah, and we'll find out in the next earnings call, because it's a public company. So all of this will come to light. But
Man,
yeah,
that
so
was
far.
very sorry, I just have to point out that was very like next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
We'll find out in the next earnings call.
I mean, basically, they should actually advertise it like that. I'm sure more people would turn up for this earnings call. And then they would find out some news. I mean,
Man,
last time. Yeah, go ahead.
just turn the earnings calls into Succession. I mean, that's all I really want. It's just a Succession show about the video games industry. Do it.
That probably will happen
I
in a
know,
year or
right?
so. Another prediction. Yeah, but like at the last earnings call, I think people found out for the first time, oh, someone's stepping down, and oh, like this game is not coming out. This game is getting delayed. It's like Diablo 4, I think, and Overwatch 2, and so Activision Blizzard, promised its employees transparency, and a lot of them have complained that they actually have to wait for the earnings call to hear some news about the company. They don't know until then. Um, so maybe we'll get something. I mean, I just got a statement from the company this week to update me that nothing has changed. It's all the same. And then I've also Raven also announced they fixed a bug in their patch notes. One of the bugs was there was a skin that was invisible, and now it's visible. So I think that when they were fixing the skins, that's a source of revenue. So maybe they wanted to quickly fix that one to make sure their profits were untouched.
Yeah, that's actually a really good observation. That makes a lot of sense. Um, but yeah, I do think that there stands to maybe this year, hopefully this year, be some silver linings from this. The main one being that, like, obviously, this has pushed the industry further in the direction of potential unionization. We already had Vodeo do that, but they're obviously a smaller company where the boss was in favor of unionization and just let it happen. Activision Blizzard is a very different situation given that it employs thousands of people and, you know, is clearly not even a little bit in favor of a union. But yeah, I mean, there have obviously been rumblings in that direction that Shannon, you've reported on. I mean, yeah, do we think it happens this year? Do we think that a company like Activision Blizzard, the workers there finally manage to make it happen? Or is it going to be more of this kind of gridlock, stalemate, you know, making moves at each other, but not necessarily making it happen?
Yeah, this is one of my predictions actually, which is that I think the industry will see more unionization. It may not be like it may just be like other smaller companies, other smaller studios again, like Vodeo. Like Vodeo was created last year and has, I don't know, like just over 10 people at the studio. And so like to unionize that is it's much simpler than unionizing over almost 10,000 people at Activision Blizzard. But it's also worth noting that a company doesn't have to unionize all of the workers. Like a company can unionize by department or by like subsection of a company within itself. So even if we don't see like a massive AAA company unionize all at once, we could see like smaller sections of companies unionizing, and that could happen because it does seem like each person in favor of unionizing is like learning from someone who already has in the past, and they're all getting inspired by each other and moving closer to this overall like movement. So
Yeah, it's like Pikmin.
okay, sure.
It's a
uh,
bunch of people getting inspired by each other and moving as a unit.
Is that what
Pikmin
that?
is
Oh,
just a
okay.
game about solidarity,
Oh,
class solidarity specifically.
my feeling, my kind of addendum to that is that it sort of depends on what you mean by unionization. I think there's going to be a lot of interest, a lot of union drives, a lot more organizing. I think what we're going to see is my kind of cynical prediction is that we're actually not going to see a lot of actual like recognized unions by the end of this year. Instead, we're going to get into a lot of protracted fights with companies over whether a union can exist, and the company is going to contest it, and they're going to say, "Oh, you're intimidating the people who don't want to join a union. You're doing this thing procedurally wrong." I think we're going to see a lot of the parallel that comes to mind is like universities. And
Mhm.
universities drag out like graduate student unionization for as long as possible. And usually the intent is try and like barge through a democratic administration and then try and handle all unionization issues during a Republican administration. That's happened at Columbia. It happens a lot in the Ivy League. I have kind of less insight personally into kind of other schools. But my instinct is that with game companies, we're going to see literally the same thing, just delay, 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 don't recognize the union, fight over small procedural things. So the interest is going to be there. The pushback is going to be pretty severe as well. And even more cynically, if you want to even take it further, it might become like a culture war issue in the games industry where it starts becoming more of an issue around kind of fan discourse and stuff like that. Like, oh, this studio is delaying this game because they're pushing for this unionization drive, and you have all sorts of kind of toxicity arising out of that. There is a way in which kind of increased enthusiasm for unionization can have a lot of these kind of weird side effects that delay unionization through no fault of like the workers who decide to unionize on their own. So
Mhm.
that's my cynical prediction for 2022.
Yeah. James Jackson in chat just asked an interesting question. I feel like I might know the answer to it, but basically he supposed the idea of like a company like EA or Activision, in the face of a single studio unionizing, basically being like, well, then we're just getting rid of that studio. Now doing that openly would be retaliation, which I'm not sure that they can do. But I mean, they could, yeah, find a different reason to like obviously get rid of a lot of people or to get rid of a studio. I
So
mean, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
so this actually just happened. I mean, I still have to verify this, but it's been reported that 1 week ago that Voltage, Japanese romance game company, shut down its U.S. division, and that's like a division that just successfully unionized
Hmm.
as well. So I mean, that's an example that people were pulling from for inspiration, and of course now they maybe don't have a U.S. Department anymore.
Hmm.
So that definitely could happen, but again, it's like if you successfully unionize, then uh, shutting down the studio is retaliation. So it does raise these like questions of was that legal? And like obviously you have to go to a lawyer to figure that out. But yeah, I mean that's one approach for management, and then from there you see you can kind of ask if that was even legal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are all sorts of questions around like plausible deniability where a unionization happens at some studio, the parent company waits 6 months and then disbands the studio for some other supposed reason, or just doesn't assign them any work for half of a year and they're not working on anything, and then they say, oh, we're cutting these costs. If you wait out long enough, if again you wait out for a right-leaning NLRB, then it might not be resolved in favor of the union. It might be an issue that just never goes anywhere. You also sort of have to rely on folks in the union kind of continuing that fight for however long it takes to resolve it. Like after the studio closes, it's just you get tangled up in years and years of procedural stuff, possible lawsuits, etc. Um, it's a lot of trouble to get into. So
Yeah, no, it's almost like our country has made it purposefully incredibly hard to unionize.
mm,
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I guess another like slight silver lining I see is that there does seem to be, at least in regards to other game development trends, a move in the direction of companies doing a better job of focusing on work-life balance, or at least talking about it more. I mean, we have like I think there are three major companies now that are implementing 4-day work weeks, which seems promising. I am working on a feature about one of them, which is Blackbird. They're working on the new Homeworld game. There's also IDOS Montreal, and then there's one other studio. I'm blanking on who it is, but yeah, I mean, like it seems like there is some traction being gained with that idea at least, and that's really good because obviously the games industry is very prone to crunch, and crunch is a very destructive practice that, makes a lot of people's lives demonstrably worse until they quit making games.
Mm.
And so, yeah, as long as there's more kind of knowledge of that and awareness around it and these efforts to try to mitigate it, the hope would be at least that in that direction, video game workers are less exploited or at least have more options. Obviously we'll see how that plays out because a lot of crunch in the games industry is culturally motivated. It's not necessarily the number of hours you are directly assigned to work. So, that
I
could
feel
go
like
any number of ways, but it's something.
I feel like there's some parallels to tech here, where a lot of the bigger studios, at least, if there's not some kind of overt misconduct, can kind of dissuade unionization by making the jobs really plush, have really good benefits by being kind of first movers on benefits and kind of health at work. The example that stands out to me is Riot Games, where they have a lot of time that they set aside for employees, essentially breaks of like, okay, this month, like for 2 weeks, nobody's working. And here's this other period in the year where nobody's working. And I don't have like profound insight into this, but Riot is pretty prestige when it comes to game developers. And I imagine that the salaries there are higher than they would be at some other studios. Um, and it feels sort of equivalent to say like a Google or a Facebook in tech, where if you're kind of at the top of the pile and you can spend lavishly to keep employees happy, you can sort of stave off unionization to a certain degree. And it becomes a question then of like who moves, who decides that it's in their interest to unionize. um, how easy is that? How much is the kind of legal environment encouraging that to a degree? So that's
Yeah.
it. I'm going to stop rambling.
No, that's a good point. I mean, there were people. Like one person who works at Blizzard went on Twitter to say, why hasn't the video game industry unionized yet? It's because people are largely satisfied, and they didn't really have. If they had problems, they could raise them, and then management would do something about them. And they just felt like, for the most part, their voices were heard, so they didn't really need to do that. And I think it goes back to the salaries, even though I think there's like a hashtag like game dev paid me, like on that
Mhm.
hashtag people have said like they're underpaid compared to tech workers. Maybe they're also software engineers, but they get significantly less. But they are making six figures and are decently compensated, and they also have at some companies some measures against crunch, at others not so much. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting kind of situation where, on one hand, there's a lot of awareness around the ways that games workers are treated, but on the other hand, there are elements of the job that, yeah, I mean, definitely stand to dissuade people. And then there's also the kind of central argument that I think a lot of people who are in favor of the status quo make, which is like, oh, dang, you get paid to make video games. It's the dream. It's the best job ever. So you should be willing to make some concessions in order to do this thing that, everyone else would kill to do. Um, I mean, is that logic sound? I don't think so, but it is kind of the implicit argument that I think is made pretty frequently with regards to this sort of thing. But yeah, I guess kind of moving on from that, I have just kind of like, well, I mean, first of all, do either of y'all have any more like very meaty predictions, ones that bear a lot of discussion, or is it time for kind of a rapid fire round?
I don't know. It's hard to say what'll inspire discussion, but I'm okay with Shannon. How are you feeling?
yeah, I think we covered a lot of what I was expecting, like more supply chain delays, unionization, Omicron continuing to ravage the country. Uh, yeah,
All
so
right, I'm here in rapid fire round.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. What are some of the good ones? Okay, first of all, I think that this is the year we get a new game announcement from Hideo Kojima. I think he was like teasing it at the Game Awards, so he's going to announce something this year. I still think, despite his kind of talk about like making something that is like currently relevant to modern events and all of that, it's going to be a survival horror game. I think he's going to like maybe maybe kind of Jordan Peele it a little bit and be like, it's a metaphor for the things that are happening right now. But yeah, I think that like, he got taken off of Silent Hills, and I'm guessing he still probably wants to do something that plays in that space. and maybe he'll bring back some of his actor buddies for it. But yeah, and then in my notes I have I'm going to predict it. I predicted it last year too. I'm going to predict it again every year until I manifest it. So that is my personal belief.
Shannon, how about you? What's a rapid fire prediction?
Wow. Well, I didn't actually prepare these. Personally, I'm looking forward to like I don't know like all the great indie games coming out. I mean, that's not even a prediction; they've been announced. I'm hoping that Red Candle Games they made Devotion and Detention. I hope they release their game this year. It looks really cool. They've done a lot of like 2D side scroller. Or like one of them was like a first person horror game, but this one's not a horror game. It's like traditional Taiwanese folklore, and it looks really gorgeous and it's like well animated. So maybe that comes out this year. I don't know. They've been really quiet, so I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, and just for the sake of the audience, Red Candle made Devotion, like Shannon said, that it's a game that for a long time was pretty profoundly banned in China due to some references to leadership in China.
Yeah,
It finally got to like actually come back onto stores recently, but it was
it's
like 2
still
years, wasn't it?
it's still banned in China. Okay, so 2018 is when it was taken down. Devotion was taken down from Steam, and then it only made it back to like redcandlegames.com's website, where nobody really hears of it and can find it to buy it because nobody goes on this website. So like I've talked to this indie company before, we've covered it for launcher, and their sales are down because Steam can advertise their game, but like an indie website doesn't really do its own advertising. So yeah, people can't really find it anymore, but it's still available. It's still on sale. It's just they've taken away the controversial parts that made it offensive to Chinese gamers because there was a talisman that was a meme about the Chinese president calling him a dumb moron. So
Oh well. Okay, Mikhail, prediction from you.
I don't have my list in front of me. The one that stands out is I think we're going to get a Cyberpunk revival in
Mm,
2022. I think I'm starting to see rumblings of it, and I would not be surprised if 2022 is the year when we see about a months long news cycle that's like, is Cyberpunk 2077 good again?
I've
Um,
already seen an article kind of like that. I
mhm,
know that Kotaku published a piece basically saying like that it has positive Steam reviews for the first time in like ever.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, I mean like they're also releasing next gen versions of it in
mhm.
the next is it like March? It's pretty soon. Um, but in any case, like they're doing all of this, so yeah, I mean, if nothing else, the discussion around that game will crop back up as it does when new versions of a game come out.
Yeah.
I wonder though to what extent people are going to be like, yeah, actually, it's good versus like, yeah, but it's still kind of mediocre. Like even if you patch out all of the bugs and issues, like it's still just kind of, it's no Witcher 3.
I think what a reassessment will take is a couple of factors, and I think we're kind of lining up for that to happen. And the first is game is widely available on sale, and I know already. Basically, I wouldn't say basically everyone. A lot of people already have it, but people who don't can buy into it, and at a really low price. If you're walking into a Cyberpunk that's been patched from its release version, and your buy-in is $7 on Steam, you're going to look at that and you're going to be like, okay, this is actually pretty compelling. So you
Mm,
have that
yeah,
one
for
angle.
real.
The other angle is, and this is pretty speculative, if there is a groundswell of support from, I want to say, a content creator. So somebody on YouTube, some Twitch streamer, somebody who has kind of, I'm imagining a like someone like Donkey, some video essayist, someone like that gets back into Cyberpunk, makes a video and says, "Oh my god, like look at the themes, look at the stuff we overlooked." Creates basically the narrative runway for fans to get on
Hmm.
of the game is cheap now. There's a lot of stuff that's good about it. A lot of people were unfair when it came out. You can throw in some stuff around like the journalists misled us around the game's launch. You
Oh
get
wait,
all
we
of
got to
that
get ahead
in.
of that. Actually, I'm going to be the one to say that the journalists misled us, the journalists, about Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
They were all wrong. That game is amazing and perfect. I mean, it's basically a Keanu Reeves hangout simulator. What else do you want? Wow.
Exactly.
Once again, it's just the journalists showing that they're out of touch with the people.
That could be if The Matrix came out half a year later and we had the Keanu wave 6 months from now, that would be the third pillar of bringing back Cyberpunk. You get this Keanu like late career reassessment. He's in The Matrix. You have that GQ or Esquire profile of him where all of his acting buddies are like, he's the nicest guy on earth. He brought me wine and truffles when I mentioned to him that I'd never had truffles before. We painted nails together, yada yada yada. You have the Keanu reassessment, late career reassessment. That's pillar number 3. So cheap support from prominent content creator or content creators, setting the narrative runway for fans. The sort of thing that is easily repeatable. They basically, yeah, they have to come up with a narrative that people can repeat ad nauseum on Twitter, on Reddit, etc. Just roll that out. And if we had the like Keanu reassessment going on at the same time, those would be like the perfect 3 pillars for Cyberpunk to sort of re-emerge. And we might be missing 1 or 2 of those at different times in the year, but I do think this is the year where we start seeing the kind of No Man's Sky, Destiny 2 style reassessment of Cyberpunk, where people start coming out of the woodwork and singing its praises and saying, like, now's the time to jump back in.
I think the only problem with that idea is that the changes to No Man's Sky, especially because I think that's the
Mm,
one that everybody kind of like draws parallels with anytime a game comes out and is
mm,
panned and then gets better over time. The difference is that No Man's Sky's changes over time were substantial. It is
mm,
a radically different game now than it was when it came out, or even a year after it came out, or a couple years after it came out.
yeah.
And Cyberpunk has been much more just like we are going to smooth over what is already there.
Mm,
It is in no way substantially different from what it was when it came out.
yeah.
And
I
I think that's the kind of like major change it would need, similar to like Fallout 76, not as successful in doing this, but nonetheless ended up getting kind of a critical reassessment over time, but only after major substantial changes and additions.
Mm,
I will say there are some people who talk to me about how much they love this game already, like Cyberpunk, because they played it on Google Stadia, and I'm like, "Why are you playing on Google Stadia?" I think like the user base for Stadia is like small, and we still don't know how many people are playing on there, but like those are the avid fans if you're looking for them,
Mhm.
are from Stadia. And then I've also like seen people just say like, "Oh, I really like I don't want Cyberpunk 2077. Like this is still a terrible game. I would never check this out either." So there's like these like 2 different parties or groups of people.
Warring factions.
Yeah,
mm.
and I haven't seen like substantial changes from CD Projekt Red, but I have seen that they got into NFTs.
Great.
So
I mean,
and,
if you
and
want to
I
make a game about the cyberpunk future, truly cyberpunk in not just function but also form, just add some NFTs to it.
yeah,
Mm.
right. And I was like, "Hey, you want to talk about your NFTs?" And they're like, "No." I just heard back today. They said, "No, we don't
Oh
want
man.
to."
Also, James Jackson just pointed out, I think rightly, he asks, does Tim Rogers like, yeah, incredibly long video about cyberpunk not count as like narrative runway? I've not watched that video yet, despite being a Tim Rogers fan, and I think the reason for this is the same reason that video may not count, which is that it is incredibly long and very intimidating in terms of like actually being viewed. And so the problem with that is that it's what Mikhail was talking about is like an easily repeatable quick message. And his video is the complete and total and utter opposite, the most opposite to that idea you could get.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of like Donkey's videos. They're like 2 minutes long. I
Yep.
would not want to click for 10 hours on something that I already
Okay, let's
am
calm
like
down. It's only like
skeptical of.
6 hours.
Okay. Okay, big difference. Wow. How many things I could do in those 6 hours instead of watching that?
Man, it is. I'm assuming like his other work, a very good video. I'm excited to watch it.
Mm,
It's one of those things that you got to carve out some time for.
I
yeah.
could watch Eternals like 3 times instead of watching that.
Yeah, you could. Um, but yeah, okay. So let's see. Speaking of CD Projekt, another prediction I have is that I think we are going to. I think this year is going to be a year, at least, in which CD Projekt tries to rehabilitate itself And so with that in mind, I think there's also a good chance we will get some sort of a Witcher 4 announcement. I think that it will be a Bethesda style, like, here's a logo and we're out.
Mm,
Look forward to playing the game in like 3 years kind of thing. But I think they'll be like, yes, we're doing this, especially given, all of the hype off The Witcher that around the show and everything like that. I think it's very inevitable and probably coming soon. E3, something like that. Or maybe they do like that Witcher convention, weird
yeah.
online convention thing they did last year again. And they're like, also, we have an actual announcement this time. It's the
Yeah.
game. Yeah, we'll see though. But
We
yeah,
definitely we know it exists because
mhm,
I remember around the time of Cyberpunk's launch, they were explicitly talking about like, yeah, we have multiple projects in
mhm,
development, and one of those is another Witcher game.
Hmm.
So the question is like, do they think they're far enough away from the disaster of Cyberpunk's launch to say, hey, 5 years from now, we're going to be doing The Witcher 4?
mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think so, because one of the things that definitely stands out to me is that anytime somebody's talking about Cyberpunk in very negative terms, the goodwill surrounding The Witcher remains. Like, The
Mm,
Witcher remains in most people's eyes unimpeachable.
yeah.
And so I think as soon as CD Projekt invokes that name, people will be like, yeah, of course I'm excited about this. Like, maybe I'm a little bit trepidatious because of Cyberpunk, but like only a little. So yeah, I think that's an easy one for them. I think they'll do it.
I also think, it's gonna be hard to run away from Cyberpunk, as it's like still a game that's getting patches, and there is a anime on Netflix that's coming at some point, that people have completely forgotten about. But when it drops,
Mm.
people will be reminded that this thing still exists.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I think ideally in their eyes, again, they successfully rehabilitate it. I don't think they necessarily want to run away from it. They want to make as much money as humanly possible off of it. Um, but yeah, let's see. Wait, things are happening in chat, and my other screen is very far away. So let me look at it. Um, let's see. Okay,
Oh,
so
Project L.
yeah,
Okay.
Project L, and then also Real Prism World was talking about a Persona 6 announcement. I think that is unlikely, if only because that studio just put out a new Shin Megatan game. So, I mean, anything else from them is probably a ways off. But yeah, Project L. Well, let's talk about that. Shannon, what's your take?
Okay, so can remind me, is this the
Isn't
Riot
it the fighting
League
game?
MMO? That's
It's
the
the
MMO, right?
MMO, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the MMO.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, it did seem like they had all their like
Hey everyone, I'm
projects
Tom,
like
executive
on
producer at
like
Project
I don't
L.
know, in development for a long time, and at the same time they were all ready, and that timing was very interesting. Like all in one year, like all in the pandemic year, all
Mm.
these games started coming out, and the MMO just trailed behind. But yeah, it sounded like, and I've like followed all these people from Riot on Twitter, and they like have all these veiled tweets about the project they're working on, and it sounds like, oh wow, I'm like making such a diverse game that I cannot tell you anything about, and it's gonna be more diverse than any other game we've ever seen. But again, I can't say anything, and so I've like seen these hints, and I'm like, I don't think there's anything else this could be besides the MMO. And then yeah, that's basically like my impression of it. It might be closer to launch than we expect. It could probably come this year.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's very close to launch for an MMO.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wait a second. Okay,
That's
Project L is the fighting game, but the
yeah, that's
MMO
what I
is
thought. Okay, I was
alright,
pretty sure that was
cool.
the fighting game. That's also a ways out, though. I think they did a kind of an update on that fairly recently, and we're like, oh yeah, it's going to be a while. Because yeah, they like showed some of it at a recent thing, didn't they? But then they were also like, okay, just because we showed it doesn't mean it's like anywhere near done, which is kind of wild to me because that game has been in development for like what 6 years or something now. Like it's been a
Yeah.
while.
Mhm.
They
Um,
showed it years ago around the same time that they first showed Ruined King, which just came out.
right. Yeah. No. I
Well,
mean,
well,
oh
Ruined King was made by a different studio, so like
yeah.
different people, and they probably could devote all their resources to that one game.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's also worth noting that like let's see, Teamfight Tactics was built off of League's game engine, and then so they
Mm,
like really struggled to make this other game off of like one engine that I was used to making a MOBA. And
Mm.
then I think same thing goes for like the fighting game. They have to think of a new engine, and it's a completely different style of development. So that's probably one explanation for why it's taking so long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I also just looked. Project L is definitely not coming out this year. When they showed some footage and stuff last year, they specifically said it will not be out in 2021 or 2022. So
Wow.
that's that for that. That said, I do think that especially for like the MMO and to a lesser extent Project L, like they've laid some really good runway now for it because people are suddenly, as a result of Arcane and to a lesser extent Ruined King, very interested in League lore in a way they weren't before. And so I think that like there's going to be a much greater demand to inhabit that world now in a way that an MMO would allow you to. It reminds me of the feeling around kind of Warcraft post Warcraft 3, where the world was much more vibrant than it had been before. And so when the game itself came out, it was like, wow, it's really exciting to go to these places and freely roam them as opposed to just like hearing about them or only seeing little bits of them. So
Mm.
I do think that Riot has kind of primed itself for the MMO to be more successful than maybe it would have been. But yeah, I feel like that and the fighting game are both a ways out. Riot has, for a long time not really been in the business of releasing things quickly. So, you know, buckle up.
Yeah, that's
What?
true. And also, oh, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to ask what the MMO code name is if we have one.
I think it's just MMO. Like, but then they had so many letters that I've like
Yeah.
forgotten what all of the letters stood for. I mean, they didn't stand for anything, but they're just like
Eh,
A through L.
it's
Um,
project your Wi-Fi password. It's just whatever your Wi-Fi password is. That's just you fill it in with that.
Ah,
It's a
okay.
bunch of numbers and letters. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
okay.
it's project 1 2 3 4 5 6 parentheses change later.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I was just gonna say that let's see. So yeah, I had a lot of friends who would never play League. They would never open League ever because of just I don't know, they heard it was toxic or they thought it's not their type of game and then but they wanted to become more involved in this world of Arcane somehow. And there's like no real good way for them to do that right now. They could play Pokemon Unite, but it's like a completely like a 10-minute MOBA, so they can at least try that. But yeah, so right now there's like no gateway into that world unless the MMO comes out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's see. Speaking of that kind of a thing, another pretty easy prediction on my part is just yeah, I think um, kind of similar to something Shannon said earlier. We're going to see a lot more like video game, movies, TV shows, stuff like that. You were talking about studio buy-in and things like that, but I think also just Arcane especially, and then shows like The Witcher and Castlevania and Dota have kind of paved the way for like, hey, yeah, video game adaptations can work really well as TV, and maybe to a lesser extent film, at least so far. Um, and especially with Hollywood being like, hey, we're kind of running low on like popular things, like popular books to adapt and things to remake. They're going to be like, oh, perfect, video games. There's all of this, like, there are all of these IPs we can mine and sort of do our own thing with. And also, it's a good way to connect with Gen Z. Like, it's probably a holy grail at this point. So I would not be surprised if suddenly everything is a video game TV show.
Yeah, yeah. I've been watching some. I forgot the name of one that I watched on the airplane back from like Game Awards. And
Mhm.
there's also one I like Free Guy came out last year with
Oh
Ryan
yeah.
Reynolds, and that was pretty good. People liked it. I think it seemed to portray games pretty accurately. So at this point, there's just gonna be more of this, and especially if you, make a lot of these, like, movies that are based on games, then people will have a common language for it and, like, understand it better. It's, like, not this, like, underground culture at all, and
Mhm.
then, of course, that just paves the way for more, movies and TV shows.
Right. And yeah, I mean, pretty clearly as a result of that, um, that leads into one of my more niche predictions, which is that at some point, as a result of his new hairstyle, um, Tom Holland is going to play me. He's already on track to play Nathan Drake in Uncharted, but I think that he's really about to corner the market on Nathan's. If we could get a visual here, he has my hair right now per
Wow.
a conference that they recently did about the Uncharted movie, in addition to a bunch of other Sony things. And so I think it's inevitable that much like Chris Pratt is playing all Italians, that Tom Holland is taking over Nathan's. So I think that's kind of his plan for this year. I think that's one of my bigger, bolder, and yet probably more likely to come true predictions.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg's been working on the post too, but he hasn't found like a fitting story.
Right,
So I
right.
think we could conceivably get Steven on the line for a film adaptation about a kind of plucky video game vertical,
Definitely
focused
very
on
plucky.
covering the news of the day and Twitch and whatnot. And yeah, I feel like Tom Holland's kind of a shoe-in for the Nathan character.
Oh, yeah, no, he perfectly captures my youthful energy. So yeah, I think that he'd be great. Um, yeah, I think honestly, in kind of a bolder move, I'd want him to be his British self for that, not the American version. I'd want
Mm.
to be portrayed as British, even though that is not necessarily true to who I am. I think it could just be kind of a fun twist on the character.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, that's definitely one of the more important predictions I could make.
Mm.
Um,
Cool.
uh,
I was
what?
just distracted by the fact that, there's Uncharted news at CES, which is wild. Um, I guess the movie. And also I have to go.
All right.
But I hope you both enjoy continuing to make many
So
predictions.
so upset were you by this gag, by this bit that you were just like, I'm taking off.
Yeah, I'll catch you in the next time Tom Holland appears to play you. All right,
Yeah,
bye.
it's gonna be really rough because it'll be me and him in the same room. Oh wow, she just took off. Okay, I see how it
Mhm.
is. It's fine.
All right, and our next guest, Tom Holland,
There
is
we.
joining the stream.
Yep.
Uh,
Actually, to our message to our producer, could you just put that picture of Tom Holland kind of in the panel that Shannon used to occupy?
yeah.
We can just be like, yeah, we're talking to Tom Holland about his predictions for the year. And then I can kind of cover my mouth and be like,
Mm.
I'm Tom Holland, and here's what I think. That's how I
Yeah.
say it, right? Uh,
Well, one of my predictions for the year is that we're gonna. What does he sound? What am I? Hold on, I gotta do. I'm doing Spider-Man voice.
all
One
right.
of my predictions for. It's too nasally.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
hmm.
I,
Oi, Gov. I think next year at in the video game industry, we're gonna have a lot more movies with guys who look like Tom Holland.
so you have
That's a
definitely
great
descended into an
prediction.
Australian accent. That was not British, but
What? Yeah. There's not. The thing about it, there's not such a thing as like an Australian name.
Mhm.
If Tom Holland, it would be so nice if Tom Holland were like Finnish and he was like Tommy
Oh yeah.
Hollandinen. Then it would be much. But yeah,
Wow.
harder to spoof Australian Tom Holland. But
Yeah,
uh,
no. Also, in chat, James Jackson just said, "Oh wow, too bad Shannon missed Tom Holland." Yep, her
yeah.
loss. Rough times all around. But yeah, okay. So some more very rapid fire predictions because I still want to
Mm,
get to like there's a little news this week, and so it's worth hitting. But quickly, I do think some games are going to come out this year, and those games are in no particular order: God of War Ragnarok,
mm,
um, Elden Ring, obviously,
mm,
Splatoon 3. I think we have a good chance at Saints Row, even though it got delayed. Horizon Forbidden West, that's right around the corner. Dying Light 2, finally. Maybe Bayonetta 3. We'll see. And then, yeah, as I said earlier, I'm very suspicious of anything that we've seen basically no gameplay of. So, like Hogwarts
mhm.
Legacy, even though that's technically scheduled for this year and we haven't really seen much of it. Also, I
Yeah.
apologize if there's sound in my background. My cat is currently trying to dig through my wooden floor, which is something she does a lot. I don't know why. She tries it every day.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
Yeah. She's an interesting animal. Um, but yeah, let's see. Um, anything else that matters? Oh, yeah. Um, some very easy predictions. I predict that Gordon Ramsay is going to stream on Twitch like any minute now,
Mm,
any day. Like
yeah.
it's going to happen. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It will happen. Um, I also predict in relation to that, the television industry is going to come for Twitch streamers at some point. The current meta, for those who don't know, on Twitch is basically just like watching YouTube videos of older TV shows, kind of commenting over them and engaging your audience and all of that. And like it's fun to watch. I mean, I think to me it kind of closes the loop that is like in a lot of ways Twitch streaming is just watching like a solo reality TV show.
Mm.
And so all these streamers are now watching reality TV. And so it just kind of like it all makes perfect sense. The appeals are similar.
Yeah.
And so you're just layering one on top of the other now. But in the same way that the music industry eventually came for Twitch streamers, and now it's a DMCA, a Palooza anytime that somebody uses licensed music. I think it is only a matter of time before TV kind of has a similar reaction to all of this. I think what Twitch streamers have on their side is that they're watching a lot of older content that is
Mm.
available on the web already. So I mean, they have like some buffer space there, but I still think that it's another industry that's going to be like, well, there's money here, and we can't just leave it on the table.
I was going to ask about, if Gordon is going on Twitch any minute now, any day
Mhm.
now, whether we're going to see kind of the reversal of what the trend was before, which was there was a period when like TV really badly wanted Twitch streamers or like
Mhm.
online celebrities, where like Fred had a TV show from YouTube way back in the day. Uh, Not exactly analogous, although I guess he has his roots in YouTube. Like Justin Bieber got killed in Law and Order, and Ninja was at the like Times Square CNN thing.
Mhm.
Um, and whether we might start seeing the reciprocal attention of traditionally TV talent kind of dipping their toe into Twitch, and that may be paving the way for a less punitive isn't the right word, but like a more forgiving approach on the part of TV rights holders to
Mhm.
Twitch.
I mean, we'll see, right? I think
Yeah.
unfortunately that might actually result in a more punitive approach because that's
Mm.
what happened with music essentially. Is that when the pandemic first started, a lot of mainstream musicians, lacking touring as an outlet, started going to Twitch and streaming, and that coincided pretty timely, and a lot built to this. But that was right around the time that DMCA started to be an issue on Twitch too, because the
Yeah.
industry started paying attention, and before they were just not. It was not really a major concern. And so, like, I think that's probably the more likely thing to happen. And I know that there have already been some DMCAs related to television based content over the years. They have just been few and far in between. But there's like, I think the television industry was kind of the first to use a lot of the technology that allows people to do like live DMCAs. So instead of
Yeah.
doing a DMCA over content that had been pre-recorded and posted to the website in the form of a clip or a VOD. TV has gone a little bit more after streamers actually in the process of doing something, but it's not so pervasive yet as to be a concern for streamers. And there's been a lot of arguing over that actually this week. That was one of like the current news hits I wanted to do, and I may as well just point to it. Is that
Mm.
like streamers like XQC who have long done this sort of thing have been kind of getting targeted by other high profile streamers. In this case, Soda Poppin and Ludwig have both been like, "Hey, this is dangerous. This is bad. This could, impact a lot of streamers negatively if prominent streamers keep just streaming TV shows." And then people like XQC and Hassan have both been like, "Look, we've been doing this for a while, and it's been fine. And like, again, we're using older content, so probably it's okay." I think XQC likes to push the limit on this stuff a little bit more than Hassan does,
Mm.
as evidenced by the Olympics thing that I covered over the summer, where he was streaming Olympics clips and then risking everyone getting in trouble. So, but yeah, that's kind of the status quo of all of that. Um, and yeah, I think that we will see some sort of motion on that this year, just given that Twitch, has obviously year on year gained more and more mainstream clout. And I think that train is not going to slow down yet. So yeah,
Yeah.
it should be an interesting year on that front.
I was cynical before, so I'll give kind of the hopeful prediction now, which is that if brands that have like consumer brands that have no relation to Twitch and streaming content whatsoever can kind of see the upside of partnerships with streamers, like
Mhm.
if Honda is partnering with esports teams and they can rationalize that to themselves. My hope is that with the kind of growing intermarriage between online celebrity and like traditional Hollywood celebrity, TV rights holders start approaching this maybe not with takedowns, but with kind of
With
brand
love.
promotions with, well, I mean, essentially, yeah, love that comes with the contract.
Mhm.
Um, of like, hey, if you're streaming this like do ad breaks. We'll pay you like X amount to do a test run, see if this is worth our while. You'll give us a cut of the revenue, like organizing some kind of deal rather than approaching this with
Yeah.
hostility. And
In the
I'm
end,
not
that's probably the smarter move, but
yeah.
because like a very interesting thing that has happened is that like specifically Gordon Ramsay is the person who has become massively popular, not just on Twitch, but before that on TikTok. He
Mhm.
has one of the like biggest TikTok accounts.
Yeah.
And it's just like I think that he's someone who has directly embraced a lot of this stuff. I mean, again, there's a reason why as soon as that like one clip, which I actually have somewhere around here, um, yeah, there's this one clip where, he had an episode of his new show like last week, and somebody one of the main guest he had is somebody who streams on Twitch, and his response was like, "What the F is Twitch?" And like that clip went viral. And I think that day his probably not him, but his like people changed his Twitch profile or his Twitter profile to read always near food, doesn't know what Twitch is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, instant capitalization on this because somehow Gordon Ramsay has managed to become this like hyper relevant Gen Z figure by just
Mhm.
like rolling with these trends. When he gets big on a platform, he just immediately goes in. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, like, there's clear evidence that when something takes off like this on more modern platforms, and the people involved, or like the people who feature in that content, um, capitalize on it, it just boosts their profile even more. So yeah, I think we'll at least see savvy people doing that. I think we'll see other people
Yeah.
just being like, it sounds hard, lawsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, let's see. If I exhausted, I have not fully exhausted my predictions, but we're at the very end of them now. Thank goodness. Let's see. Briefly, Twitch is going to take some sort of big swing in regards to discoverability. I think they have to, because Twitch is a platform where the only way to get discovered on it is to be discovered on a different platform.
Mhm.
And that's a terrible status quo to have on your platform because it disincentivizes people from using it or from trying to use it, or from spending all of their time on it. And one of the most important metrics for Twitch in terms of like ads and sales and things like that is retention. People staying on the platform, people being there for multiple hours, people consuming as many ads as possible. The more people stick a foot out the door, the less money they make on that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that they are trying to massively overhaul the way that streams and categories are organized, and they just
Mhm.
haven't hit on the thing yet that they can definitely roll out and be like, "Yep, this is how Twitch looks now. This is its complexion."
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like maybe these aren't easy changes to make, but like you look at the performance of the thing I see a lot of when I scroll through YouTube is I see like top clips of the day
mhm,
from Valorant. And that shows me like obviously a bunch of big names, people who would of course have really popular clips. But then it just shows me like streamers I've never heard of,
mhm,
like winning a big round, doing something funny. And on YouTube, there is not a direct way for me to jump from the clip to whatever channel it is. Uh, on Twitch, if that were a built-in functionality, if that kind of curation were a thing that they did, um, the kind of leap from a clip to a channel to a follow to a subscription would be way, way, way easier. And there are already ways like off platform that people are kind of drawing attention to channels, drawing attention to stuff that's happening on Twitch. And some of those things could, in theory, like natively work on Twitch. It's just a matter of like them investing in the changes that would make that a part of the site.
mhm.
And that's kind of a tall order, but um, I think there are ample examples to draw from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a kind of like because Twitch is such a different platform than a lot of other platforms.
Hmm.
Like they have to tailor whatever their solution is to live streaming specific content.
Hmm.
The thing YouTube can always get away with is that they are first and foremost a like prefab video platform,
Yeah,
and so they can just use that to fuel discoverability and the algorithm and stuff like that. Twitch doesn't have that advantage, so I think that's what they're constantly struggling with.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's see other important predictions. I'm going to go ahead and say now, 100% certainty. Waluigi will add himself to Smash. He will bring the game back from the grave that it is now in terms of updates, and he'll just be like, "Nah, I'm in." He's going to hijack Nintendo's E3 Direct to do this.
Honestly, I can see it happening. What we need is so we had Reggie, we have Doug Bowser now. We need Greg Waluigi to take over the company. And when Greg
Waluigi.
Takes over the company, then I'm pretty confident that we're going to get Waluigi in Smash. It's just a matter of this is partially our job as the press. We need to look at the Nintendo org chart, find the person whose name is closest to Waluigi, and hype them up in the press through we astroturf this person, we boost them on social, we make Greg Waluigi or whoever it is the next contender for CEO of Nintendo or Nintendo of America, and then I think there's a pretty clean shot to Waluigi being added to that game.
Well, yeah, let's do it. I mean, we have the power.
We sure do.
But yeah, let's see additional things. Oh yeah, another one that I'm fairly certain is going to come true. Bethesda's going to release a new version of Skyrim that is just the game's opening. And yeah, it will also be and no further questions after this comment, by the way. It will be the final video game anyone ever releases.
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, cool. And then my final prediction is that Rockstar is going to hold a press conference where it publicly deletes all of the code it has for GTA 6. And that code they will reveal is just assy art of a middle finger.
Yeah, that one also kind of scans for me. They're going to take the code, they're going to print it out, and they're going to throw it in the big furnace that powers up their GTA Online servers. They're just going to shovel all of the printed out code into the big roaring engine that keeps GTA Online running. So that scans for me.
You got to feed something to that engine. But yeah, okay. So that's pretty much it for predictions hour, I think. Very quickly, I want to run through some of it's obviously been a really light news week because it's the first one back after, the holidays. So not a ton has officially happened, but a few things have. One of the main ones, I think the biggest one, is that Bloomberg published a story about BioShock creator Ken Levine's next game and how it's not anywhere near being done. It is, according to the headline, in development hell. Reason being that Ken Levine is the sort of person who, and we already knew this based on the stories that came out about BioShock Infinite, he is the sort of person who will often, in pursuit of perfection, be like, hey, everybody, that thing that we spent a lot of time on? Scrap it. Do it again. Make it better. Make it different. Make it more the way that I want it to be. And it turns out that if you have somebody like that, and the only consequence for that sort of behavior, in addition to laying off the entire studio that you had because you want to make a different kind of game, which is what he did with his previous studio. If the only consequence for all of that is a new studio and publisher buy-in that spans years and years and years, 8 years of the publisher being like, yeah, we'll just wait on this, then he's just going to keep doing it.
It is pretty incredible that even from the report that says like, yeah, they've been at it for years, like stuff keeps getting scrapped, there's not even like I think you get a sense of how dire the situation is because there's not even like an outline or a wisp of what that game might be. There's no, usually in a story like that, there's some description or a telltale sentence that's like, it is a blah 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 genre game with X action that does yada yada. And here the most that we got was like they're doing narrative Legos, which the idea is that like the closest thing it reminds me of is I guess like Shadow of Mordor to a degree, where like you make some narrative decision that cascades through the rest of the game in like a semi-procedural way. But that gives us no indication of like genre or style or art or setting, like nothing, which seems like a pretty bad sign for that game.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and at this point, it's very hard to say when it will ever come out.
Yeah.
But this is just another bit of evidence of like the ways that games workers can be exploited, especially by people who are seen as charismatic or as prestigious by the industry.
Mm.
Here's hoping that this serves as yet another cautionary tale that people actually take to heart when forming their own studios or when reevaluating the ways that the ones that they currently run function.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, on the upside, BioWare announced that they are embracing work from home. So basically, as of this year, now you don't need to relocate to Edmonton or to Austin to work for BioWare.
Mm.
New hires will be able to work from home. So that's neato, because I think that at this point in the pandemic, everyone should be doing that, not just
Yeah.
game studios. And so it's good to see at least one studio be like, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Hopefully others will follow suit.
It's kind of a good change of pace from the start of the pandemic when the huge challenge was like technical. Oh, we can't like lug all these servers to people's houses, and like people don't have setups at home to work on their games. So the fact that that's been resolved is kind of nice. The one downside, I guess, that I could see, and this has been written about and discussed in other contexts and not specific to games, but given crunch, given kind of labor issues in games, I can see this being an issue. Um, Work from home kind of encourages a blurring of the line between leisure time and work time, where you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of always on call,
Oh,
can
don't I
always
know
be
it?
reached. So with games, I feel like that is particularly problematic, or that's like
Yes.
a recurring trend. I guess you can't really pin it on any one industry. It happens, I think, everywhere. Um, but labor conditions in games are like best characterized by crunch. So work from home on the one hand, good, opens up opportunities for hires that like would not have happened before. And on the other hand, like can maybe exacerbate some of the like long running issues in
Mhm.
games.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, if you are always in the office, it is very easy to crunch.
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, but yeah, so let's see other things that have happened this week. This is one I'm still working to confirm, but reportedly, 40 people were arrested in Turkey in relation to a basically money laundering scheme that happened last year on Twitch. And so the basic idea is that people would use often stolen credit cards to buy a lot of Twitch bits, which are a currency you can use on Twitch to donate to streamers. And then streamers would receive those bits and split the payout, the cash out that they can do with the people who gave them those bits. So they just it's fairly straightforward money laundering.
Mm.
Um, and so that was discovered because of the Twitch hack, because the data wasn't really adding up in terms of a bunch of people's viewership versus the money that they were getting paid by Twitch.
Yeah.
And yeah, then as a result, Turkish law enforcement started investigating it, and I guess the outcome of that, again, still like the most reliable news sources we have on it are kind of like they're very pro government. So the as I understand it, they wouldn't just like say these sorts of things unfounded. They would have a firsthand source. Um, but nonetheless, it appears that 40 people have been arrested in an operation in relation to all of this, which is pretty substantial. That is a major thing to happen surrounding Twitch.
Yeah. As I am not as clued in with
Mhm.
respect to like Twitch corporate comms. Have they said anything about this? Have they made any public statements, or yeah, just kind
They
of
they have yet to do that, but
mm.
if you want like a real seat of our pants live update right now, they did reply to my email. Let's see. Um, they would like to talk to me about it,
Oh,
is
okay.
all I can say right now.
Nice.
Um, let's see. Yeah, okay. Actually, right after the stream, I will talk to Twitch about this, is what's going to happen. So
All
yeah,
right,
I mean,
folks.
now
Stay
knowing
tuned.
Twitch, the way that it's going to happen is that it will all be on background,
Mm.
and they won't actually give me any sort of statement because that tends to be what they do.
Mm.
But we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, that is that whole thing for the moment. Um, let's see. I've already covered a lot of the other things that I wanted to hit. Oh yeah, importantly, I also just found to start the year, right? I think that we need a couple headlines that really feel like they are of the time that we're in.
Mhm.
And so with that in mind, I found a couple. One of them is YouTuber Trevor Jacob accused of crashing plane on purpose for views. Um,
All right.
just pretty much what it sounds like. YouTuber had its own plane and did a whole video about crashing it and is now actually being investigated by the Federal Aviation Administration.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Did he crash it from the air, or was it a crash of
Yes.
like
Like I think he
taxiing and
crashed
then
it
drove it
and
into a?
then got out of the plane in time to, not be part of the crash itself.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
And then he parachuted into the Nevada mountains after an alleged engine failure.
Huh.
So just a very, modern day headline sort of thing that you probably wouldn't have seen 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Always fun stuff. Similarly, Twitch streamer apologizes after heavy backlash over pushing dog into fridge,
Oh,
which I just find to be a very depressing headline, but on the
this
nose
is
for our times.
yeah. Maybe a clarification that's not even worth it. But
Mhm.
when you say into, do you mean like into the side of the fridge, or opening the door and pushing them
Oh yeah, no,
into
into
the
the side of the
refrigerator?
fridge.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Feel bad.
It seems like he got mad during heated gameplay, and so he had the latest iteration of a heated gameplay moment. Actually, here we
Yeah.
go. With no sound, perfect. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, his dog got up on him while he was doing something pertaining to the game he was playing, and he pushed his
Hmm.
dog off him in a way that is not not super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, 2022, we're already out here. We're already
Oh,
wilding.
off to a good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, this thing, this strange PC. These are the cooling vents on this thing.
Oh, is it the PC that breathes?
Yeah, it's like the fractal breathing PC.
Yeah, I
It
didn't. Maybe
like
I didn't dig into it, but why would you need that?
I for it to look cool.
I
I mean,
guess I
there's
feel
no
like
need for any of this ever.
that's true, but to me, it's just like you're almost unless I'm like misunderstanding how all of that is positioned. You're
Mhm,
like decreasing airflow
mhm.
on and off and on and off and on and off. I feel like that can't be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full extent of it. I'm mainly just interested in it because it looks cool. I will never buy anything like this.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, wait, actually, let's see. Is it more or less energy efficient? It's inspired by kinetic architecture, which allows structures like buildings or satellites to transform to alter not just their form, but their function. A building might have panels that unfold to help divert wind, while a satellite in space needs its mirrors to move in order to harvest solar energy more efficiently. So yeah, that's how it would work on other things. I think in this case, none of those are concerns for a PC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, as the writer of this article says, it's triggering my trip. I don't even know I have that and I don't know how to say it.
Mm.
Trypophobia. Yeah, that's the fear of small holes that we were talking about earlier. And
Yep.
same. Yeah, it's hard to look at. So that's why I'm scrolling away from it, even though the visual is the sole appeal of this. Let's
Mm.
see. Anything else that matters? Oh yeah. I would like to end the stream on one of the most important things to happen so far this year, which is that there was a recent circus performance for the Pope, and within that
Mm.
performance, they decided to play the popular meme song from Undertale, Megalovania. And so, I mean, on one hand, this is funny because it's the Pope, noted local pet hater, the Pope, and for two, it's actually kind of a banging cover. Like it's
Yeah.
weirdly good.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
I think the the physical performances in that video are a bit underwhelming in that I don't entirely understand what's going on with the like tumbling of the block on the feet and the guy like walking around the guy who's tumbling the block. It's
kind of improv.
yeah, it's a bit strange. Also, whatever statue backdrop behind the Pope, whatever that is, very. That's kind of what it looked like. Yeah, that is the vibe that I got. It felt very like cosmic horror-y. Wasn't into it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I feel like we're missing the forest for the trees here. Great cover, good times. Pope over there, walking out in his characteristic way with the beat completely still and kind of dumbfounded by what he's seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sort of like the patronizing half smile. Yeah, where he's like, yeah, good job.
He's like, yes, I think I will check out this Undertale.
Oh boy. He's not Italian. He's Brazilian, I think. He's Latin American. I think so, yeah.
Well, then I have no idea how the Pope sounds. But yeah, if I were the Pope,
questo
I would
momento
definitely hear that and be like, I'm going to play Undertale.
Yeah.
That's kind of my personal perspective on Popely matters. Yeah. So, with all of that said,
I wish I wish I had played Undertale so I could have some like fun pun to go alongside this bit. I'm thinking right now, and I'm like, you cannot live sans Christ or something like that. But I'm
no, that's great. That is perfect. Because
I don't know
Megalovania's Sans theme song, so you nailed it.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that game. I had to edit our video producer's story about Deltarune, about like what's going on in Deltarune. And I was reading through it, and I was having one of those moments when you're like halfway through a creepypasta, and you're like, what on earth? Good story. That story did great for us. That was a good thing to put out as a person who does not understand Undertale, has no exposure to that world whatsoever. That was a task.
Also, as somebody in chat says, the ultimate journalist power move would be to reach Toby Fox for comment.
Yeah.
Not even wrong. He does not reply to anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all of that said, should probably get back to doing journalism because I apparently have a call with Twitch in about 20 minutes. So yeah, I think that that's pretty much it for this week for us. I have been, and hopefully will remain for all time, Nathan Grayson. And Mikhail, how are you feeling about remaining yourself? Is that a thing that you'd like to do, or are you kind of like iffy on it?
Change is the only constant law, as they say. So it's hard to say who I'll be in a day, a week, a year from now. But I'm certainly not against it.
All right. Well, neat. And yeah, just to let everybody in chat know, streams are back. So we also have a gameplay stream tomorrow, 4 p.m. ET. And then we will be back this day next week for another one of these whole things. All that said, I think we are going to take off. I'm going to once again queue up Megalovania because I want to be played off by this song. All right, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
It's like the ending to SNL.
I wish if we were in person, we could do that thing that talk show hosts do with their guests, where their mics get muted and we lean in, and if we pretend that we have a rapport and we're chatting amongst ourselves, and Megalovania is playing in the background, and we're patting each other on the back. You say something and I laugh at it, but nobody can hear what we're saying, so